Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Jaipuriya Talks. We are very fortunate to have Vijay Misri with us all the way from London, UK. And let me introduce her first of all. Vijay Misri is a qualified careers guidance practitioner who manages a team of career consultants at a London-based university, working with both home, UK, and international students. She delivers impartial and confidential career guidance, enabling her clients to enhance their self-reflection, knowledge of the labor market, for example, to make informed decisions and to professionally develop. BJ has experience in designing and implementing career management module with practical career exploration, planning, and implementation tools for clients. She also loves using Lego and serious play in her coaching sessions. Welcome to the podcast, Vijay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, the pleasure is all mine, and it's very wonderful and exciting to talk about the future of jobs with you. So, I am from India right now. You are in UK. The time difference is of 5 hours 30 minutes, but the development distance is a lot, which is now uh, shortening also because of the internet and the age of internet and MNCs. So before we start this episode, a little bit of your background, from where do you come and what do you do in general? So if we can have that, then we will start.
Sure. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction there. Yes, just a little bit about me. I am a career practitioner working in a London-based university. Throughout my period of time that I've been working, I've dipped into various projects, particularly around entrepreneurship, innovation, and summer schools in different kind of European countries, which I very much enjoyed, I have to say, but also looking at the range of students that I did work with and what they gained out of these various projects. And I think that's the best thing that I can actually experience, seeing students develop and increasing their skills and knowledge, which they can go on to apply into the world of work. But yes, I've been a practitioner for around 13 years now, worked within schools as well as higher education, but currently within higher education. So that's just a little brief about me.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting career choice because mostly when people are in school, in colleges, they are thinking about their own career. And you are into a career where you are helping people build their career. So how did you come into this profession and when did you start thinking that, okay, this is something which I would love to do? And was there some incident or some day when you were talking to your teacher or what happened? How did you come into this profession?
Yes, I think when you're a student or coming up to the time of deciding what career you want to go into, I think a careers advisor position doesn't normally come into your mind. It was certainly the range of experiences that I encountered. I did study a psychology degree during my bachelor's, so that's what I got as my degree at undergraduate level. Through this, I went on to work in recruitment. And now within recruitment, it was very target based, focused on really the sales element, which I did thoroughly enjoy in my early career. However, it really made me feel that I wasn't really supporting the individuals to the best of my ability, because it was almost like a numbers game. So I was really hitting the targets and not giving the quality. So it really made me look at it in a different point of view. And how is it that I can make sure that I'm providing the best support, but also the guidance that's going to be needed to navigate this labour market that we're all going to be facing at some stage. So I actually got in contact with the university that I studied at, and through this opportunity I was able to get involved with some temporary work, which converted into a permanent position. Of course, I went through the interview stages and the application rounds. um, it was working in the careers team that really opened up the range of roles, I guess, and the functions that a careers team has. And liaising quite closely with their career consultants, I very quickly realized the depth of work that they provide, and really demonstrating to the students how they can look at various resources and tools to look at the labour market and what's really going on, so they can start applying their skills and their strengths and really dig into their motivation to start making, I guess, that move into the opportunity of graduate roles. So it was really that moment that got me into this position, and from there I went on to get my further qualifications, postgraduate diploma, as well as a master's, as well as an associate qualification for designing modules and delivering that as well. So this is where I am because of what I observed and what I experienced through my own, I guess, journey.
Yes, yes, definitely. So this transition of you being a recruiter at one time and then transitioning into being a careers person. So this definitely suits my first question related to the future of jobs, right? Be it India, be it USA, be it UK, or at all the places, uh, common people, students, job seekers, they often complain that there are no jobs in the market. And when you talk to organizations, when you talk to recruiters, HRs, business people, entrepreneurs, they would always say that there is a lack of quality people in the market. They have vacancies, but they are not finding good people to fill up these jobs. So, what is the missing link here? What is the gap here? That at one hand, people are looking for job and they're complaining that there are no jobs. And on the other hand, the job providers are saying that they are not getting quality people. So as a recruiter earlier and now as a career counselor, advisor, how do you look at this situation?
Yes, that's a really great question. In terms of the perceived gap or what the mismatch might be, it's I would believe that it's a lack of planning from maybe the student's end.
Mm,
So I guess a short-term goal is looked at, and they're looking at their 3 or 4 year degree and thinking that's what I need to get over,
mm,
and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do at the end of it. Whereas employers, they are looking at students. What are
mm,
they doing from the moment they have joined university? What kind of activities are they participating in? Whether that's through student union, volunteering, short projects, internships. So I think it's that little mismatch in terms of students leaving it to the very last minute and employers seeking that experience from the very early stages. Now, my recommendation would be to really start engaging with students from the moment they start, really getting them to explore what are the opportunities. Now, when I say exploring what are the opportunities, that doesn't mean that you're set from day one what kind of avenue you might go into. But when you start thinking about yourself, going through self-reflection, recognizing what motivates you, what are your skills, what are your strengths, what is that drive, and the values, what are the values that you have been holding, not just from your childhood, but that you have developed through your time. And it's that self-reflection process that would then allow, I believe, the students to start matching what the employers or the sector or the industry is possibly seeking from them. So they start marrying what they have researched that the employers are seeking and what they should be engaging in from very early on. So hopefully that starts bringing both
yeah,
of the parties, I think, to that middle ground. But again, yes, through that self-reflection, then linking it to exploring and navigating the labour market. So I think, again, looking at what the changes the pandemic has done,
mm,
um, certainly that's I think an example of students beginning to dip in to various different aspects, but also start adapting to this uncertain
yeah,
change. So
yeah,
if it started very early on, hopefully that adaptation can be made rather than the very end moment.
yes,
So
yeah.
that's some of the things that I would suggest.
Yes. So definitely career is something which you cannot start planning at the end of your degree. You have to start planning it at the beginning of your degree. So from that perspective, what are the common mistakes students, job seekers generally do when they are at the beginning of their degree and they are planning their degree? So what are the common mistakes they generally do?
Yes, I believe the common mistakes are lack of understanding of the type of content they might need to be putting together. So they've already got great strengths from their program, whether that's undergraduate program or the masters or even doctorate. They've got great research skills which they are applying to their homework, the assignments they've got to do, but they're not transitioning this skill and strength to the opportunities that they should be maybe applying to or navigating and exploring. So I think it's that element that they might be missing. So when it comes to the content, because of the lack of research, they're not adapting and tailoring and suiting, I guess, what the employers may be looking at. But also this is where they fail to express what their values are and how this connects to the organization or the particular sector. So let's take, for example, the use of automation within the different sectors. Um, and I think the digitalization and the various tools that we are using, by recognizing how they could use what they are doing in class into the world of work. So for example, I think what we're doing right now as well, using the various channels we have to really liaise with one another and to find out about how we can better prepare and support the individuals that we hopefully will be touching on, whether that's even one person that's looking at the video, at least it's one person that we've touched on to get them to start reflecting and start exploring not just what's in the market space, but also themselves. And by knowing themselves better, they'll be able to adapt the content that they start sending out. And that's the CV, the cover letter, the application forms, and how they then perform in an interview scenario.
Yes, yes, definitely. So when you are talking about some tools to plan the career in a more effective way, so can you talk a little bit more about some tools which can be used for career planning as well as for decision making also? When a person has 2, 3 sectors and the person is deciding that which sector the person should go into, which industry or profile or things like
Yes, I do enjoy using tools and passing them on to students so they can use this not just for a short period of time, but I guess for the length of time that they want to dip back into the tools. So it's always going to be there for them to reflect back onto or to use to navigate going forward. However, some of the tools that I would suggest exploring are a personal SWOT analysis. So many, I think, business students would have come across this through their course and their program, particularly when it comes to exploring companies and looking at the opportunities or their competitors, for example. A SWOT analysis is a really great tool to start understanding yourself. So when we look at it at a personal level, yes, we want to identify our strengths and weaknesses, because if we're going for a particular opportunity, if the weaknesses are something that may be required during our time at university, hopefully we're tapping into the range of projects or activities that start shifting the weaknesses into strengths. So that's the couple of boxes that you would start looking at. But then also when it comes to the world of work, you do want to recognize what are those opportunities, what are those threats. And again, during the time at university, you can start negating some of those threats that may become apparent during your research. So that's one tool that could be quite useful. The other tool that I also feel quite useful is the Johari window. I believe not many individuals may have come across through Johari window, particularly when I say individuals, I mean students particularly. Now, the Johari window, it is a 360 tool. So it's looking for feedback from individuals, and it's not just feedback from the individuals that are close to you, because there could be some element of bias, sometimes positive bias, but you probably want to extend this to your peers, people that you might be working on various assignments or group work. But also, if you've got a part-time job or you've volunteered somewhere, these are people that are new in your life, and they might have picked up something else about you that you may not have really sat down and thought about. So this Johari window tool allows you to look at your talent, your attitude, your behavior, again, skills and strengths, allowing you to, again, put this into the context of, so how do I now apply this into the world of work? How does this provide me with examples and evidence that I can start providing to future employees, and through my sales documents or through the LinkedIn profile that I have created? So it's really gathering, I guess, the information that they have been used to doing while their time at university, and then applying this to the tools. And hopefully this becomes a reflective element, so they start matching this again to what their likes and dislikes are, and if the opportunity is going to allow them to put the skills and strengths into use.
Yes, so definitely using personal SWOT analysis, people can use the self-reflective tools to know more about themselves and what are their strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And through tools like Johari window, they can get the feedback from other people that sometimes which they might have missed, what is their strength and weakness. So, but the idea is, as you have said earlier also, that we have to use these tools simultaneously, continuously at the beginning of our career, at the beginning of our degree, as well as throughout the 3-year, 4-year degree program also. The mistake which, as you have said earlier, people do is that they start using these tools just before they are applying to several job profiles. So thank you very much. This is a very useful information which I think people can use. So now we could not ignore the elephant in the room, which is the pandemic, COVID-19. Right? So since you are in the careers profession, so what kind of jobs you think will be there after this pandemic, during this pandemic, how this pandemic has affected the jobs? There are certainly now gaps in the academic records of the students also, because 1-year gap, 2-year gap. So how do students and people prepare for the job interviews, and how do people plan their career once now after this pandemic the industries are rising up again, getting up on their feet again, they are again recruiting people? So how do people handle this pandemic and the way it has affected the businesses?
Wow, yes. The pandemic certainly has caused a lot of noise and a lot of drama in various different sectors, as well as functions as well. The job roles that once upon a time existed are now becoming quite challenging. We can see that the pandemic made a big shift, and a very rapid shift, to using more digital tools, as well as, I think, with dispersed teams globally, not just locally as well, that the virtual meetings started to kick off and so forth. So certainly the use of digitalization and perhaps automation, we had to very quickly shift and become familiar almost overnight on how to use these tools. So we are seeing various reports from larger organizations, as well as kind of local information, that the sectors have had to shift. They've had to look at, I guess, the front line, or the front line workers, as they might call it. But certainly the data is suggesting to us that in terms of moving forward and looking at the kind of opportunities, I'm just going to look at my page here, because I have got some stats and some data that I'd like to also share as well. I think one of the biggest thing is that when the pandemic happened, some of us, I think when I refer to some of us, I'm also talking about students here, some of us went back to our home countries, So that meant that we had to manage different time zones. And if we are studying in the UK and we're from India, for example, that time of when the class might be at 9 o'clock in the morning or even 3 o'clock in the afternoon is certainly going to be quite different in India, for example. So according to QS, when they investigated 8 different countries, their report and their information is predicting that 17 million STEM jobs are going to be more in demand or increasing. And this is where the use of digital tools and automation is going to be heightened. So I think it's the intensity level of the kind of tools that we might be using, and I guess how our functions may be adapting as well. So again, if we're thinking about access to, I guess, resources and perhaps devices as well, this is where I think the inequalities may become apparent as well. So I think for lower level incomes, lower level of education, they may be impacted in terms of the job openings that may be available. So again, data from OECD is suggesting that the nature of work is going to be changing to online, with more employers advertising to work from home. So again, if you are going to be challenged by, I guess, lack of device that you may have access to, or even strong internet connection, for example. And I think many of us have had that issue as well when we're online, and all of a sudden we're being impacted because of the browser that we might be using, or the internet connection. So I think the inequalities are going to be apparent. But certainly the various kind of names that I've mentioned so far and the reports that they have done, we are seeing digitalization, automation, and the increase or heightened increase of STEM opportunities, job roles.
Yes, so definitely pandemic has accelerated the digitalization of the industries, but there is one more distinct feature which is there now in the job market, that is the gig economy.
Yes.
Right. And along with that, the Gen Zs, they are also not looking to have a job which is 9 to 5, sitting in one cubicle and doing something. So they need adventure. They are more outdoorish than the previous generation. So how industries, organizations are changing the way they think of jobs in the scenario of gig economy and this distinct characteristic of Gen Z.
Yes, yeah, this is certainly an interesting conversation and a question as well. Now, when it comes to, I think, the Gen Z, who are known for, I think, their passion for looking for meaning and that work-life balance. So I think certainly with how the pandemic has converted opportunities. And when we're looking at how we're moving forward with the use of digitalization and automation, certainly I think around branding, using, coding and analytical data tools to I guess look at marketing, for example, or how we might target particular consumers for e-commerce platforms, for example. So we are looking and seeing that project-based work is being offered out. So I think this is where it may accommodate some of the Gen Z that we're, I guess, perceiving as looking for that contract opportunity, the not 9 to 5 or the office-based opportunities. So I think particularly in the UK, if I refer to, I guess, organisations like Fiverr or Pay Per Hour, I believe that it's called, who are offering project-based opportunities.
Yes.
So it's allowing the students to use, I guess, the digitalization or some of the creative flair that they've got through the programs that they've been doing. I think graphic design is probably a good one to use here for, I guess, digital marketing. So yes, we are seeing companies that are offering, I guess, short project-based work, but also this then comes with a zero-hour contract, particularly if I refer to the UK here. So how is this then going to be balanced when it comes to, I think, the benefits of exploring project-based work in comparison to working for an employer that might be full-time on a 9-to-5 basis. So it's looking at that balance, but I am certainly picking up that it's the meaningfulness that they are looking for in the opportunities. And I think with the pandemic, the work from home and creating that work-life balance may be something on offer. But I think it's also quite important for it being recognized that initially this may come across as something that suits an individual, but I think if you go back to your values, reflect what's important to you, this may become more apparent that is this something for you? Is a project-based opportunity, the gig economy, the best work available that's for you?
Yeah, so definitely it will boil down to the individual's choice, but the millennia is looking for meaningfulness, and industries are creating job profiles which provide some kind of meaningfulness. So thank you very much, Vijay. From a very micro level, what a student, what a person can plan, to a very macro level, how jobs are getting affected. We have discussed jobs to a very good length and breadth. So now my audience would love to know you also as a person. So I have prepared 5 rapid fire questions also, which you cannot think much. You have to give very short answers in a very fast manner. So are you ready?
Okay, let's do this.
Right. Okay, so the first question I'm shooting, who is your inspiration and why?
Oh, wow. I would certainly say my mum is my biggest inspiration. She came to a country with no language at all, not really understanding, what is this new place about? And she did everything all on her own. She secured a fantastic job, pursued education, learned a new language, learned how to read and write, and build a family as well. So my mum's my biggest inspiration. She's faced so many challenges and always had to have her children at the forefront of whatever she has done and provided for us. And I think it's that care and that nurture that my mother has certainly put into me, but also the value she's embedded into me. And I think this is why I'm in the position that I am, to give to others as well. And this is one of the values that I hold very dearly. It's family, it's trust, and this also transcends into my role. So I know it's short. So yeah, it's my mum.
Yes, definitely. And we can also see a reflection of your mother in you. So the nurturing nature and the care, so that is required for this kind of profession in which you are. Okay. Second question, you give a lot of advice to other people. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Yes, I'd probably say start talking to the grown-ups very, very early on. So even before I started university, I probably should have spoken to some individuals about the job roles that they are into, or what I was aspiring to once upon a time, to get out there, to speak, to really find out what are the steps that the others had taken, so I can start almost following that and get her, I guess, into that ideal position. But yes, networking and gathering information very early on, so I can make those informed decisions very clearly.
Yes. So definitely, yes, it's very crucial that people, especially young people, they talk about their career choices, the meaning of life, which they have created in their mind, with their elders, with their friends, and things like that. It will bring a lot of clarity. Okay.
Yes.
Next is, what's the best compliment you have ever received?
Oh, I would certainly say the students that I've worked with, and the best one I certainly think is getting a card to say I'm the #1 careers advisor.
Okay.
I think it's those kind of comments that you get, and you just feel, oh wow, I've touched somebody and I've supported them in getting where they want to be, and
Mm.
that's the best moment ever. So yeah, being told I'm the #1 careers advisor
Yes. Yes.
was probably definitely the best feedback I've had.
Yes. We can feel the happiness on your face also when you are remembering that moment. Yes, definitely. Next is, if a movie is made on your life, what would be its title?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
If a movie is made on your life, what would be its title?
Oh wow, what would be the title? I'd say Here's to Adventures.
Okay.
It's one of the liners that I always use, not just in personal life, but also I think with my work as well. It's all about adventures and, keeping an eye on the ambiguity, the uncertainty, and finding alternative pathways to get to where you really want to. So it's all about adventures. Here's to Adventures. That's my title.
What a wonderful title you have given, right? Here's to adventure. Right. My last question for this rapid fire is, what are the two things which are there in your bucket list?
Oh wow. Um, Two of the things that are on my bucket list, one of them is definitely to do a bungee jump, which 4 years ago I was going to, but just never got round to it. So I'd put that one definitely. And the second one is to take my mum to as many travel holidays as I possibly can.
Mm.
She's done heaps for me already. So I can only wish that I could do the same back for her.
Okay, okay. So thank you very much, Vijay. It has been very, very nice, wonderful, and your energy has created a different kind of aura for today's episode. So thank you very much, Vijay. I hope you also enjoyed talking to us today. Thank you
Oh,
very much.
you're very welcome. I certainly did enjoy it. And thank you so much, Dr. Sharma, for giving me those questions and for having me as well. And I'm wishing you a wonderful day too.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye for now.